the world of sim racing, the line between reality and simulation can be razor thin. It's the details, the feedback you feel, the precise control at your fingertips. That's what makes or breaks the experience. And at the end of the day, it's the hardware you put on your rig that defines how you perceive these details. And that's why for this video, we've partnered with Apex Sim Racing to check out the Moza SGP Sequential Shifter. If you guys are looking for any kind of sim racing hardware, or maybe you just need a button box or a DDU or some DIY parts, check out the affiliate link in the description for Apex. Also, use the promo code in the description and get an additional 5% off any Apex branded products. Now let's get this thing opened up so we can take it for a test drive. Now out of the box, you've got your pretty standard packaging, a little bit of foam. Should be pretty safe. I wouldn't be too concerned about shipping. Underneath that, some instructions. Nobody uses those. That's what YouTube's for. Next up, we've got a couple cables. You've got your USB cable, which is what we're going to need for this setup because we don't have Moza gear. And of course, if I did have Moza ecosystem, I've got a cable for that as well. Go ahead and put that back in the bag and set it off to the side. The next bag is just some tools and mounting hardware. Got a couple wrenches, an Allen wrench, and some washers and bolts. Now for the exciting stuff. First off, the shift handle. You'll notice it's got some nice engraving for a grip with some aluminum rings in it. As far as the build quality goes, it's very solid. Feels like something you wouldn't ever have to worry about doing any kind of damage to, ripping on it. Build quality seems pretty good on that. For a grip, it feels nice. I mean, me personally, I wear gloves anyways, but overall, it's definitely a nice shift handle. And of course, the meat and potatoes. We've got the main shifter here. As far as that goes, looks like it's for the shift handle, mostly CNC machined, probably aluminum. Quite an audible click, not something, somebody's going to be sleeping in a room with you on, but it feels nice. Like that pole, obviously I want to get it mounted and try it with the handle, but it's got a pretty decent amount of resistance on it. You're definitely going to notice when you pull on it. And if you guys don't know, it also has two buttons that you can program down here. I know most of us have button boxes, but in this case, a few extra buttons never hurt. And of course, we've got the little lever here that also acts as a button. So this is something I might want to program to work like as a neutral position, if that's an option, maybe for rally racing, being able to drop the handle and go. I don't know. Just kind of my thoughts on it, or maybe drag racing. All right, guys. So from what I can see so far, obviously without testing it and just checking out this shifter, this is $129.99. And for that price, honestly, it feels like it's got a really solid build. It's got a good feel on the shift. I like the addition of the buttons. Overall, my initial impressions are it's going to be a pretty good deal, but obviously we want to get it mounted up and test it in some real world scenarios, have a little fun with it, see how it does. So let's get it put on the rig. All right, guys, so for mounting, there's quite a few options for this thing. You'll notice there's 3 bolts on either side. So I could either do single center bolts or a left and right bolt. If you're gonna really rip on it, then, more bolts, the better. Helps keep it strong. What I was originally thinking for this test is that I was just gonna mount it right here in the middle of the aluminum profile. But as you can see, the two handles with the handbrake and the shifter, it would just be so close together. Like I want them close. I don't want them that close. So I started thinking of an alternative option. And I've shared this in many other videos. If you guys don't have a SIM card, this thing has come in clutch so many times when trying to mount different things to the rig. I've used it to mount the shifter, the handbrake, uh, the net quick release at one point. Pretty much anything I've ever needed to mount to the rig that I didn't have a solution for, this thing has worked in a temporary capacity until I either got what I needed or found a more permanent solution. And in this case, since I'm not using it on anything else, it's going to be perfect just to slide down here underneath the aluminum profile. Then I can set the shifter right on top. Now, the other thing that I haven't really talked about is this does have an adjustable handle. So once I get it put in place, I can take these two bolts out right here and I'll be able to lift it up a little bit so that I can get that proper alignment. It's only probably going to need to go up a notch or two, but I do want the handles to be about the same height to make it easier and faster to shift between the two. So we'll go ahead and get the plate put on and then mount up the shifter to it. All right, now I've got the SIM card mounted, got the shifter mounted to it. I just used a couple M8 bolts. I 3D printed a few plastic washers just to protect the coating on the shifter and used a few T-nuts. So, I mean, all things considered, it's pretty solidly on there and I think it's going to work pretty well. Solid in place, but I think it's ready for a test drive. So let's check it out. All right, guys, we're all booted up. Everything's mounted, hooked up, programmed. We're ready to go.
All right, as I'm sure you guys can tell, rally isn't my strongest discipline. I've gotten so used to road racing and having both hands on the wheel and using paddle shifters that I'm finding it uncomfortable to move my hand away from the handbrake and the shifter and get both hands back on the wheel. And I think I'm also just shifting a whole lot more than I really need to be. And I think that just comes from being out of practice and not having done much of anything other than road racing in a while. But the good news is it gives you an opportunity to be able to hear the shifter, and you can hear it is quite noisy. But aside from that, it feels really good. As far as the actual shifts and stuff, I think the shifting feels pretty decent. Now, I do want to take it back off the rig and share a few more things on it that I haven't gotten around to showing you guys yet and make a few adjustments to it because I can actually tighten down the shift a bit to make it a little firmer. It felt really good off the rig, and then once I got it firmly mounted, it actually does pull pretty easy. So we can make some tweaks to that and we'll take it off and I'll show you how right now.
So Moza's made adjusting this thing super easy. You can see here, there's an Allen bolt in the middle of this big hex bolt on both sides. And adjusting it to stiffen the shifting just comes down to turning that. Now the problem is if you turn it too much, you're gonna see that it sticks in whatever position it's in. So then you're gonna have to back it out a little bit. And even then you're gonna wanna test the upshift because even that can be a little sticky. So you're gonna wanna basically get it as tight as you can if adjusting is your goal. And you'll get it as tight as you can until it basically doesn't stick anymore. Still got a little bit of stickiness to it. And then of course, once you do that, you have your other side too that you can adjust, but I've already done that. So basically you're gonna wanna balance the two bolts until you get it to a good point where It's as firm as it can be without sticking. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention while bolting this on is there is an 8-bolt pattern on the underside, and you can undermount bolt it. So it does come with hardware that will go into these options right here. I chose to use, the 3 holes on the end basically, but you do have that option as well if you want to undermount it. So now that we've got the adjustment on the shifter done, let's throw it back on the rig and take it for another test. All right, guys, so as you can see, I've remounted the shifter. I brought it in a little bit closer. This is what I was talking about with the aluminum profile, though. You can see it would have been really close. So I threw on some POV gear. Thought we'd do one more lap around the same track and then do a quick test in Assetto Corsa. Just want to know if the adjustments made any difference. And I can tell you the pull isn't much different. It doesn't really take that much force to shift it still, but it does feel a little bit more responsive. Would also help if I didn't grab the wrong handle. Yeah, overall, that is not bad at all. I think I need to spend some time on the rally courses and get comfortable again, but I like it. Try a little long throw there. Hey. All right, so yeah, a little more responsive, not much harder to pull on, but it feels good. Let's check it out in Assetto Corsa. So I was kind of surprised to learn that No Hesi no longer has drag strips. I do still have one in the game, and I've got a No Hesi car. And ultimately, I can only think of a couple good uses for a sequential shifter where you're really going to want one, and that's drag racing and rally, and maybe drifting. You guys have seen my rally skills today, so I think I'm going to hold off on drifting on camera for a bit until I, spend a little more time doing that again, because obviously I've depleted quite a bit. So we're just going to do a straight drag race. Unfortunately, not against anybody because I couldn't link that up, but let's check it out. So it's still responsive, quick shifts. All that feels pretty good. Man, I'm not doing a whole lot with it. I mean, I've just maxed out the shifter, but yeah, just seeing how it reacts with the game and everything. Not a whole lot of excitement there, but yeah, real simple, quick run. As I'm considering my final thoughts on the SGP shifter, I think, for $129, you're getting solid airplane grade material, very sturdy build quality. Of course, very adjustable. You can extend the handle up or down and stiffen it. The one reason I didn't really adjust it anymore is I would have liked to have had it be able to be more stiff when shifting. And by extending that up, it would have just made it easier. So I kept it down low just so I get a little more resistance on the pull. But all in all, it's super functional the way it is. It does have very accurate Hall sensors in it. And of course, you've got your extra buttons. These are programmable if you have the Moza app. You can change the RGB lighting on them. I chose to just go the plug and play method because that is an option as well. You can basically just hook it up and get going with it. And that's what I did. And I think it's a great option considering the price for anybody who regularly does rally or, drag racing, maybe even drifting if you prefer a sequential to an H pattern shifter. But all things considered, $129.99 is a great price for this build. And I think it's something that is worth considering for your rig if that's the way you want to go and you're looking for a good budget sequential shifter option that's from a name brand. And one last thing before I go, you guys have probably noticed the 992 sim rig looking a little bit stripped down right now. And ultimately, it just looks like a basic sim rig. Well, I had some adjustments I needed to do. The 992, most of that stuff will go back on it, but ultimately, the enclosure looked pretty rough, and I want to try to fix it to where it looks a bit more professional and less of an eyesore when you're standing outside of it. So I have some things I want to rebuild, like the roof and the side panels, things like that, that I'll get around to later. For now, with the rig torn down, I have a little bit more stuff I want to do with it while it's bare and basic. We'll get onto that a little bit later on. In the meantime, though, make sure you guys check out Apex Sim Racing, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys out on the track.